Hi everyone, my name's Kydd. I'm a certified tea master and I'm based in Auckland. I run a company called the Tea Curator and I'm here today just to share a little bit about what tea is and what tea isn't. So my company, the Tea Curator, specializes in high grade loose leaf tea, and I'll tell you the difference between that and what you can get in the supermarket a little bit later on. Okay. So what is tea? So all tea comes from the Camellia sinensis tea plant, and you can see that in the photos on the slide, which is native to both China and India. If your dried leaf does not come from the Camellia sinensis tea plant, it isn't tea. So it's a herbal infusion or a tisane or a botanical infusion. So chamomile, peppermint, rose, all of those are lovely hot beverages in their own right. They're just not technically tea. So tea comes from the Camellia sinensis tea plant, which belongs to the Camellia genus. And you might have seen in gardens across New Zealand, there are the flowering Camellia plants that you can't make tea out of. They're typically Camellia japonica, but it belongs to the same sort of large family as that common house garden plant in New Zealand. So there's two naturally occurring or dominant varieties that are used for tea. Camellia sinensis var sinensis, so that's indigenous to China, and Camellia sinensis var assamica, which is indigenous to India. And so those are natural. Then humans have come along and created lots of different cultivars, really trying to find different elements that suit a particular growing environment. So it might be one that's more pesticide, pest resistant, better at a higher altitude, or has a dominant flavour note that they want to draw out. So you can pluck leaves from the Camellia sinensis tea plant and make one of 6 types of tea. So white tea, green tea, yellow tea, oolong, black tea, and a dark fermented tea. The only difference between those types is the processing steps that happens to the leaf after it's harvested. So all of the 6 types of tea start life the same as the leaf of the Camellia sinensis tea plant. And then the tea maker will decide, I'm going to make a white tea or an oolong tea. They'll know the processing steps they need to take that leaf through to create that specific type of tea. So white tea is the least processed of all the 6 types. It's just plucked and dried. Green tea is heated. In China, they do a dry pan fry heat. In Japan, a wet steam heat. Yellow tea is smothered, which is the least common of all the 6 types of tea. Oolong tea is semi-oxidized. So oxidation is very important in tea when we get to this stage. If you had an apple and cut it in half, that would go brown on the cut part, that would go brown over time. Or if you picked any leaf and crunched it and bruised it between your hands, that would also go brown over time. So that browning is oxidation. It changes the chemical makeup inside the leaf, the color and the flavor. So with oolong tea, they'll typically take it to 2 points, either a lightly oxidized oolong is about 35%, a darker or more heavily oxidized oolong is about 70%, and the flavors are different and depending on how far it's taken. Black tea is fully oxidized, so it's 100% oxidation, and that's why the black leaf, compared to say a green tea leaf, is so dark brown or black. And then the 6th type of tea is dark tea, which is a fermented tea, also known in China as pu'er tea. So how does that translate in terms of flavor? So with white tea, it is the most delicate of the 6 types. The infusion will almost look like water. It's very light. It's very light in body and light flavor notes of sort of hay and flowers. Green tea is more green in color and actually more green in flavor. So it'll be slightly heavier in terms of its body, and you'll get savory notes of green vegetables, roasted vegetables, grassy, also a little bit nutty and floral, it can be. Yellow tea is a little bit similar to green tea, but much more mellow and nutty. Oolong tea, so a lightly oxidized oolong will be very fragrant and aromatic. It will have floral notes, milky notes, sometimes berry notes as well. And a darker, more heavily oxidized oolong will be more roasty and nutty, and sometimes dried fruit notes will come through. Black tea is the heaviest in terms of body and tannins, more astringent, and typically you'll get a malty, woody, dark chocolate notes through black tea. And then dark tea, so this is the fermented tea, it has that kind of fermented flavor with it. It can be an acquired taste to the Western palate. Flavor notes are often sort of forest floor, quite earthy, animal and musk type notes. So I source from a lot of different countries and my collection is constantly changing. So these are some of the countries here that craft high grade loose leaf tea that I source from. There's a big difference, as I mentioned, between what you find in the supermarket and specialty tea. So it's very much a spectrum. So I only source and sell specialty tea, which is also known in the industry as orthodox tea. In the supermarket, the tea you find in there is what produced by a method called CTC, which is cut, tear, curl. Basically, machine manufactured, high volume tea that is created to keep costs low, volumes high, and the flavour, they want it to be consistent year on year, as opposed to specialty tea. The tea maker very much wants to let the uniqueness of the tea in its growing environment come through the leaf, and they will craft it to draw out the best natural flavour that that leaf offers in that harvest season. And the concept of terroir, which you will learn about and you will know from wine, is absolutely relevant in tea. So things like rainfall, cloud cover, soil, altitude, all of those affect the final flavour in the tea cup because the tea is a plant, just like the grape is a plant. Specialty tea is typically smaller batch and the more of the leaf shape is retained. And the flavour will change season upon season, year upon year, and that's what you want. So just at a glance, you can see the difference between a whole leaf specialty tea and what you typically find in the supermarket, either loose leaf or tea bags. So I guess the key thing to remember in terms of what tea is, it all comes from the Camellia sinensis tea plant, and you can make one of 6 types of tea: white tea, green tea, yellow tea, oolong, black tea, or a dark fermented tea. So if you have any questions, I have a blog on my website that will be interesting. If you want to learn more, you are very welcome to contact me. The easiest way is probably through my Instagram, or there's a contact page on my website as well.